often isolated, especially when it comes to medical services. And now rural communities are fearing the forced closure of a vital charity that flies sick kids in the bush to critical medical appointments in the city. Angel Flight Australia gives cash-strapped rural families access to medical services that city families often take for granted. But proposed new civil aviation regulations could see Angel Flight fold, leaving dozens of people stranded with no feasible alternative to get to health facilities. Joining us to explain what exactly is going on is the head of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, Ben Morgan. Welcome to the show, as well to frequent Angel Flight flyers, Natalie and Thomas Hibbert in Melbourne. Welcome to you all. Ben, let's start with you. These are volunteer pilots who volunteer their own aircraft, but the Civil Aviation Safety Authority says it simply wants to raise safety standards.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's a fantastic charity that's supported by thousands of pilots right across Australia, and over 100,000 Australians out in the bush and regional remote communities have been assisted by this community. And the changes that CASA are now looking to implement over the top of these charity flights are really unnecessary and are, for all intent and purpose, excess unwanted regulation. And I guess the best way to test changes to regulation for aviation safety is to overlay those changes against any historical accidents that may have occurred in a particular sector, and to ask the question, will these changes, or would these changes have prevented those accidents from occurring? And unfortunately, what we've seen in this particular instance is none of the changes that CASA are proposing would have prevented the two accidents that have occurred.
CASA is citing those two fatalities that were associated with Angel Flight pickups. What did happen then, and why would these regulations not help in such instances?
Yeah, look, Angela, what we know of the two accidents is that they do relate to a pilot error or a human factors issue. And as the Deputy Prime Minister himself announced a couple of weeks ago, 90% of all fatalities on Australian roads are because of bad decision-making or human factors failures. It's something we need to be working forward on, and the Australian aviation industry is wholly committed to aviation safety, as is AOPA and also Angel Flight. But that needs to be achieved through supporting pilots and educating pilots, not driving excessive regulation that simply lowers participation and leaves families without essential air transport.
How excessive are these regulations? You're saying that it could cost some pilots up to $80,000, $100,000 just to bring their aircraft into line?
Look, Sarah, they're implementing changes on aircraft maintenance, for example, for aircraft engines. A requirement that is just wholly unrequired. It is not needed.
You also mentioned that it was a little bit like huge regulations on your private car and not being able to transport people.
Well, Sarah, I think for the viewers, in its most simple terms, how would we as Australians react if the government told us we could no longer transport a loved one, a family member, or a person within the community in need in our own motor car for a hospital appointment, a medical treatment, and so on? I mean, that's a wholly absurd argument, but this is exactly what the government, via the safety regulator, is now attempting to force on our private aviation industry, and this just can't be supported.
Well, let's cross now to Melbourne, where we have two frequent Angel Flight flyers, as we said. Thomas Hibbert is 4 years old, and his mum, Natalie, have flown with Angel Flight more than 20 times. And they're among thousands who are worrying they'll be left stranded if the changes proposed by CASA are implemented. Natalie, you and Thomas are relying on Angel Flight. Tell us your story and how it will impact you if Angel Flight wasn't there.
Yes, Thomas was diagnosed with a leukaemia on the 2nd of January last year. We spent 10 months at the Royal Children's Hospital, and then in October we were able to go home to be with the rest of the family. But Tom still has extensive treatment, and he has to come back to the Royal Children's Hospital once a month. And we got told about Angel Flights, and they certainly are angels because it's made our lives so much more easier. We can be together as a family, and they are just our saviours. And if this service does decrease, we're not alone. There's a lot of us out there who rely on this service, and we need them.
Natalie, you can see how worried you are about this. I mean, you have a very rambunctious little boy who's running around the studio at the moment. Is he there? Can we see him?
He is here. He's just not in view at the moment because we have flown to Melbourne yesterday for treatment today.
Because it is a 6-hour drive, isn't it, from Mildura? So that would be a heck of a strain on your family.
Oh yes, definitely. It's the time out, the financial. I'm not working at the moment because I have to care for Thomas. I've got 2 older children and my husband back home, and just once a month would be crippling to travel like that. And Tom needs his treatment. So these people, since I've got to know them, are just beautiful people and volunteer their time.
Can you ask Tom for us what he feels like when he gets on board the plane? Is it sort of some sort of bright spot in his day that he gets to have a flight before he has to have this treatment?
Yes, for both of us, it's they're just lovely. They're so supportive and give us that little bit of happiness in our day. And Thomas, you love flying in the little planes? Yes, he loves it.
Does it concern you that there have been 2 fatalities associated with Angel Flight planes?
Well, there's always that risk in anything we do. If we're travelling in a car or a plane, we've always been safe with Angel Flights. They're very professional people. They're pilots. They know what they're doing. So there's always that element of risk. Definitely we need safety governing, but I think there are other ways we could go about this.
Ben, final word, what can we do to keep Angel Flight in the air?
Well, look, this situation now falls squarely in the hands of Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Deputy Prime Minister Michael McCormack. Our 2 political leaders need to take a stand on this issue and communicate very clearly that they will not support unelected bureaucrats making decisions for Australian families on how they choose to travel. They need to push back on this very quickly. Otherwise, what I fear is that this could become a major political issue for the upcoming 2019 election.
Absolutely. Now, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority has responded, and you can read their full response on our Facebook page. As well, this is what Kennedy Federal MP Bob Catter had to say. He really sums it up beautifully. My father and uncle died as a result of the tyranny of distance. If Angel Flight would have existed then, I think they would have been alive today. A huge thank you to Ben, as well as Natalie and Thomas in Melbourne. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, coming up, meet the dance.